Hey, Chad Peterman here, your host of the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, a show that advances the home services industry and beyond. For today's episode, I'm about to pass the mic to our partners at smartac.com for their special monthly series on all things innovation and business. Together, we bring content that empowers you to build a positive, healthy workplace for you, your people, and your bottom line. So let me officially pass the mic to smartac.com for today's episode, chock full of insights that you can take and apply to your growth. Now listen and grow.
Hello, and welcome to Experience Matters, the monthly series created by and for entrepreneurs and leaders, specifically in the home services industry. Whether you're navigating the integration of cutting-edge technology, expanding your team, or aiming to elevate your brand experience, we've got you covered. Each month, we'll bring practical solutions, innovative concepts, and insider knowledge to fuel the growth of your business. Along the way, we'll feature several industry leaders to share their knowledge and insights. We appreciate you being here. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Experience Matters podcast. We are fortunate enough to be part of the Can't Stop the Growth series with Chad Peterman. My name is Andy Fuselier. This is Josh Teekell, and we are your hosts. In our Experience Matters podcast, we'll be using our unique backgrounds in entrepreneurship, leadership, and innovation to bring you all sorts of fun stories, interviews, facts, and features on topics we think you'll find useful and entertaining. Today, we're calling this episode Know Your Membership Numbers. I've heard all sorts of statistics and ranges about membership programs, and maybe some of you heard the same, but for example, industry average membership conversion rate is something like 20-30%, or that you should expect to maintain 80% or more of your members each year, or that maybe 30% or more of your annual revenue should come from your memberships. Well, today we're going to dig into some of these industry numbers as well as many other topics and talk about what we're seeing with the companies we interact with and certainly discuss some best practices. So let's get going. Okay, Josh, so let's dig into memberships a little bit. It's always good to start with the why of having them. We're gonna go to other stuff about how to gauge the health of a membership program, specific numbers important to track, and then more importantly, we're gonna get into the value maybe your program could be delivering. But why don't you kick us off on the why? Why do they exist? Why do we have them?
Yeah, so we studied this a long time, 3 or 4 months of study of this and the way the industry worked, and why people sold memberships 4 or 5 years ago, and really just it comes down to people spend money on leads to get in front of a homeowner. And of course, usually that's a demand call and there's an opportunity to monetize that relationship on day one. But since about the 60s or 70s, people have been selling maintenance agreements as a way to extend that relationship past that first day interaction. And so there's, of course, benefits to elongating that relationship to where you don't only get what you paid for the lead for that first day, but also get the next thing. And then, of course, building that relationship over time can open up other opportunities to cross-sell, among other things. So it really kind of comes down to, there's a lot of different metrics around the profitability of memberships in general. Obviously extending the life means a bigger customer lifetime value, but looking forward to diving into all of the different metrics of that today.
You touched on a few different topics there, one of which I know we could spend a whole episode on, but it's customer psychology, right? You've got a lot of experience in that. Why don't we start there, right? Because the first thing that has to happen, people have to actually sign up. So that really gets down to the metric about conversion rate, right? How many people that you touch actually end up signing up for your program? We know from our research and the probably 200 odd plus companies we dealt with that that's kind of all over the board. Can range from 20% up to we've seen 60% in some of the companies we work with. But let's talk a little about the psychology when you think about creating a plan to maximize that conversion rate number.
First of all, you have to explain the why to the homeowner. It's actually quite a bit easier to explain the why to a contractor, why they should sell memberships. But the hardest part, traditionally, since only about 20% of homeowners industry-wide sign up for these plans, is explaining to the homeowner why they need the plan. And so though the main methods traditionally for getting that, for explaining that has been discounts, especially a day one discount is one of the go-tos. Of course, the keeping the system operating well over time being proactive to make sure that those systems don't break down out of nowhere. And then, people have toyed with loyalty rewards. People have toyed with, basically saying you'll get priority service or you skip the line to schedule or different things. I really think generally every possible gimmick has been tried over the last 50 years. But I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest things people do too is just price it at a price to where it feels like a no-brainer for the customer as well. That's why you see a lot of people charging monthly now instead of annually, because it's an easier day one yes, and also it's the only time they have to make a decision about it. There's no, decision whether or not they should renew a year later. So it really just comes down to value. What value the homeowner sees in it, how well can you get that across, and then how well can you, structure the actual plan to where if you look at it from their point of view, on day one, it makes sense. 6 months later, still makes sense. 2 years later, still makes sense to have that plan. And so I think it's really important to look at it from the customer's perspective and think about it from their viewpoint of, would I cancel this 2 years later? And make sure that answer is always no with the way you structure it.
You touched on something that I think is kind of fascinating. We spend a good bit of time talking about the pricing of the plan. And obviously your goal is adoption, right? So how do you get your conversion rate up? Well, you make the plan easier to adopt, lower price being one of those. I think it's generally accepted that these are loss leaders, right? But I also want to make the distinction that a loss leader might be the structure to get in the home, but in no way should your entire membership program lose money, right? And I think we see some very, very well-run programs that actually make a lot of money. Doesn't mean they don't have room to improve, and we're going to touch on some of those improvements later, but let's talk about the first thing, pricing the plan, because that tends to be a sensitive thing, right? When we meet with customers and we suggest maybe lowering the plan price, there can be some trepidation on that. But ultimately, you're just trying for adoption.
I think you're trying for adoption if you're trying for adoption, and you're trying to make money on them if you're trying to make money on them. I think there's different schools of thought completely. And most of the larger companies that have built their companies based off being loss leaders, right? They go in at the lowest price point they can. They know that their labor is well more than what they're charging for to go to the house twice a year. But they also understand the value of that relationship when it comes to getting all the demand calls. And of course, big ticket items driving that mostly. And so, yeah, I think there's psychology around the price point. I mean, like if you were selling a widget online, $9.99 would be like, better than $11.99, right? We think $19.99 is a good bit better than $24.99, right? So there's psychology around the way the number hits the customer. And then there's psychology around how you table it. I don't think it's a surprise that day one discounts, looking at what you'll save today versus what you're going to pay monthly, and having that be a very big delta, right, is what has gotten people to sign up in droves in this industry over the last 20, 30 years. It's just also that way of doing it that gets people to cancel in droves 6 months later. And so I think it's really important that you understand, like I said before, it really comes down to, is this a day one no-brainer? But you have to get to that second level of, is it a no-brainer 2 years later? And so homeowners will look at what it costs to come to their house twice a year. And if they believe that that's needed, then they'll run the math on what they think the labor is, and they'll be off by a factor of, 50%, or 100%. And so at the end of the day, I don't think it's a coincidence that people that sell these at, $12 to $15 a month have a lot more success at selling them and keeping them than people that sell them at $25 to $40 a month. But the truth is, you have to structure your business where you're okay having a loss leader. And some of the smaller shops just can't scale a loss leader that is a couple of $100s a year. So it really just depends on how aggressive you want to be with growing the customers under management.
Yeah, that's true on the plan revenue itself, right? If you're looking at the plan revenue independently to cover the losses, then you need to be pricing your plans at $600 a year comfortably, right? To make sure you're not losing money. But most of these companies are selling when they're out there. And if they're selling and you've got a blended average ticket of $1,000, say, then it is a loss leader in that if you don't get a ticket, you're going to lose money. Majority of the time, you're getting tickets, right? And that's the goal. And so that's one of the distinction. I make it here because this is one that we have to do with a lot of our customers as well. Is there's a big difference between your program revenue and your membership fee revenue. Those two things are independent. It's good to look at them independently so that you understand that you're aligning your pricing with your ultimate goal.
No, that's right, for sure. Of course, I think that the reason some of these average order sizes and things of that nature for non-demand calls can be pretty high in organizations is because these customers churn off in the first year or two, and so they only get 2 or 3 swings. They are very aggressive with those swings, with IAQ and other things, trying to turn it over, of course, would be the first goal, if it's of age, the equipment and HVAC. And then if you have 3 swings and you sell 1 out of 3 and then they turn off, then yeah, the averages are high. I think the key, though, is the goal is to keep that customer for 5 or 10 years on this plan, right? And realistically, you are not going to be able to book a nice sale every single time you're there. I'm not saying that shouldn't be the goal. Maybe it is the goal. It's also the goal to turn it over and sell a new system every time. You're just not going to do that, right? So yeah, I think it's important to understand that if you have low churn numbers, which is the goal, right, then you're not going to be able to sell every time. So you just have to make sure that, yes, the revenue will supplement the overall price that they're paying and help that loss leader. But it is important that you're efficient with the way you structure the plan. You can't plan on making a $1,000 ticket sale once a year at every home.
Great point. The whole structure of a plan is a combination of levers and dials, right? How you set those and they affect each other. You can have an extremely low price plan to get in the home and then be very aggressive on sales, and your churn number is going to suffer. Versus you could have a very, very high upfront price, very low conversion, but people see the value and maybe stay with you longer. So I think that's the one thing that we try to baseline with each new customer. The interesting thing that I think we see a lot is the lack of data and a lack of clarity that many people have when it comes to the membership program, right? When you talk membership, it is often the stepchild of the organization, right? Everything's run around demand season. And so you mention membership and everyone goes, oh, yeah, sure. And you say, okay, well, then what do you do to track it? How do you measure? What are your goals related to memberships? And and then you kind of get the blank stare.
The good thing about best practices organizations is people do what they're told. And sometimes the bad thing about them is people just do what they're told, right? And so they're not always thinking about what am I doing, why am I doing it, and how might I tweak this to fit my business goals. It's just, hey, $24.99 monthly, somewhere in the industry, everybody realized that it's better to bill monthly than annually because that helps your churn, right? And it's more predictable. And so, generally that's accepted practice now. But yeah, I think having a holistic plan of, am I in growth mode? Am I in trying to maximize efficiency mode? What am I trying to do? And then structuring your plan to meet your business objectives.
So I got asked fairly recently to contribute to a publication about this membership topic, and one of the things that I said was that if you as the owner or the leader of your business treat your membership program like a stepchild, so will the rest of your organization, right? The emphasis you have as the leader is what everyone follows as the example, and that extends directly into are the numbers visible as well, right? And this podcast today is about numbers and, right, effectively data. Early in my career, I worked for GE, and Jack Welch, who was the famous CEO there for about 20 years, he had a phrase, and he said, what gets measured gets done. And GE went on to build the Six Sigma training, which is all about the gathering, interpretation, and use of data for efficiency. And so, that's kind of part of my DNA from early on. And that's what I really stress from day one with the organizations we work with is, look, you have to treat this like it's important. That's clear. But then you also, if your CFO is not involved from day one, why are you doing this, right? There's got to be a clear financial aspect to what you're doing, and you got to know where you're starting from. And so baselining is kind of like step one. And if you can't quickly and easily pull your membership plan numbers out of all of them, then that's a sign and a symbol right there that you don't treat it seriously enough, or that it's not nearly as important, right?
I think to perfectly optimize a plan requires having a strategy for each different types of customers too, right? What you're trying to accomplish selling a membership to a brand new system you just installed is very different than what you're trying to accomplish when you go, do a $1,800 repair for somebody with an 8-year-old system that they weren't ready to turn it over. At the end of the day, you need to have a comprehensive understanding of what's the goal for customers that are in different situations and maybe different personas as well, buying personas. Because when you walk into that 7-year-old system and it's not ready to turn over, that should look like a nice, juicy replacement sale in 5 years to you, right? And so it really should be, how do we win that business in 5 years? Maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 6 years, but how do we grab this home so that they won't go back to Google again the next time, right? And so it really just is seeing that customer, that full opportunity, not just the day one opportunity, but the full opportunity of that relationship. I think some people have done this pretty well by actually selling lower cost memberships for subsequent units. So if you have three units at the house, they understand that, hey, I'm already there. It's going to be a little more efficient. And this is a big opportunity to sell 3 systems to this customer over time, right? So it is, the CFO and the whole team should be on board with memberships, because each and every membership is a change out one day, right? And it's just, how do we keep this customer happy, do right by them throughout, so that it's our business to lose at that point.
I want to segue for a second and kind of go through some of the actual waterfall evaluation when it comes to understanding a program. I think, we touched on churn, we touched on conversion. Clearly, those are 2 big ones people tend to know. If they know anything about it, that's probably what they know, right? And then they may even know what specifically revenue and EBITDA was with the program that they run. But very often they don't go a lot deeper. And one of the key aspects of going deeper in this is that you start to uncover some massive opportunities for improvement. And so I'll kind of quickly go through some numbers and high-level evaluation that goes on. And as I'm doing this, I want you to keep in mind and chime in on what are some of the activities that are behind these things. So look at top line and you say, how much revenue did the program return to us? And then what was the cost associated and what was the profit, right? That's just there. But you got to go further, and then you go, okay, what was the labor and the COGS associated with those costs? How many truck rolls did it take to return that? And then here's the one that's interesting that most people don't go down to, which is let's bucketize the ticket value associated with those, right? So the truck rolls created the X number of tickets, and those tickets then look like what? And where we typically start is say, and this is an arbitrary break off, you can do it wherever you want, but we say $150 and below. Let's pull that out. What was $150 and below? And then what was, $150 up? It's shocking and often very enlightening to a lot of the CFOs when they go to that level and they pull it out and they realize, and these are real numbers, that between 50 to 80% of all the truck rolls that get run on the traditional plans would be considered low or no fee, right? $150 and below. And then they take that and the COGS associated with that and reapply it, and they realize that how much that erodes the profit of the program. And then we have their attention typically to start the conversation to say, okay, we all agree that's a problem. How do you change it?
I actually think I'm not sure we did cover conversion rate all that much earlier. So I've been still thinking about that when you said I should be thinking about this. But no, I do. So on topic first, certainly, if you look at it from a homeowner's perspective, right? Would you expect to buy something new every time if your system was operating? Right? I mean, there's just no chance of that, right? What makes these entire things pencil is the big ticket items, right? It's not the IAQ along the way. That helps, right? Or whatever it is. And the more cross-selling abilities you have, the better it is to be in front of that homeowner, right? But yeah, I zero fee truck rolls are the bane of the whole existence of companies. Well, they have to staff up for peak demand, but then they use these to keep their people busy. But the problem is many times the actual cost of even just the trucks and fuel, right, is more than what it's worth to go out to that home. But yeah, can we go back just for 1 second to conversion rate, because I think that's probably the number one biggest KPI in the whole plans. If you look at it, let's just run the math on it. If you have let's say you have a $250 lead, you go out to that lead, hopefully you sell something that first day. It's not ready for a turnover, and 1 out of 5 times you sell a membership, right? So that means effectively taking away the day one revenue, although it's very important to the business, but setting it aside for a second. That means you're basically spending $1,250 per membership that you acquire, right? And that membership, if it wasn't turned over day one, is an opportunity for a $15,000 ticket, and coming. So really the most important thing, this is with technology, without technology, whatever the situation, the most important KPI on the entire membership is starting with a conversion, right? And so that we talked about the price point mattering and things of that nature. But I do think that it is exponentially better for your overall membership program if you are capturing that opportunity with that long-term relationship on that lead that you already paid for. And so sometimes I feel like people just take that 20, 25, 30%, or they say, I'm at 35%, and we all rejoice. And that is good compared to the average. But it's still, 2 out of 3 times people say no. And so I do think it's really important.
What's your number? If our numbers might be different here in how we answer. What's your number?
80.
You think it should be 80%?
80. I think you can be at 80. I think you can be at 80. Now, obviously, I am factoring into that all the understanding we have of how you could grab that relationship. But I think the key, though, is there's different personas. We know that there is, at least one persona out of 5, right? And, or so that will sign up for these plans. But what is the other 80%? What are the reason why they're not signing up, right? We have to think about it from that point of view. Maybe even ask them, right? Do a survey. Say, hey, if you're not signing up, do you mind me asking why? Right? Because there are different personas, and we have seen some of our customers go out, knock doors, and offer other things and double and triple the people that are signing up, right? But you have to offer something different than we'll come to your house twice a year, right? Because that's 20%, right? And maybe if you're really good and you have a lot of bells and whistles, it's 35%. But having some other way to grab the home. I actually, Billy Stevens has this $10 a month membership. And it's like, he never goes to the home. Like, it's not even it's just a $10 a month membership. And here's all these benefits of it, right? And that's actually somewhat similar to all the other ancillary benefits of a traditional plan. But he just says, hey, it's a $10 membership. It's like, I guess, Costco, where you get some discounts for paying. But what's interesting about that is that then they're not actually thinking about, do I value the visits? They're actually just thinking about, what am I getting for $10? And they're comparing it to that. And so I really believe the optimal thing is having something for everyone. Some people are 70 years old and they still want to have you come out twice a year. That's fine. Some people are 35 years old, new homeowners, and they're like, look, let's just keep an eye on how things are going, and I'm good. I'll call you, right? Or you let me know if you see anything weird, right? Or some people are just like, they're all about the discounts and the ancillary benefits, right? So I could make an argument you do like a $3 or $4 or $5 membership, like what Billy's doing, just because at the end of the day, it's literally just a check mark in the homeowner's mind. But getting to a check mark for 80%, I think, is achievable. And that just dramatically increases the overall value of your ad spend, right? Or your referrals, or any time you're in the house. And I think that's where this equation starts. Certainly, it's not where it ends, but it's really important that you have a comprehensive strategy on maximizing that percentage, because you already paid to be in the home most of the time. And don't let that be a one-day relationship.
You gotta find a way to grab them, and certainly how you structure the plan. Structuring a plan with 0 truck rolls and a very low cost probably gets a higher take rate, and then you got to evaluate, how do you continue to provide value in a way so that they don't leave you. So I think it's a continuum of matching your business goals up to the structure. But so my number, if you just ask me, I would say it should be over 50%. If it's not over 50%, you've still got a lot of tweaks to make. I think you're right. I think you can get up to 80. I think that there are probably companies that are doing pretty close to that. Actually, I know there are. But man, they've been working at it for years, and they're honed and skilled. I think just generally the average listener out there, that I think if you set a bar at 50 and say that's my goal, and you continue to drive around that, that's very achievable.
It starts there, but then the second thing we talked about is churn, right? And if your churn numbers are horrible, it doesn't really matter near as much what your conversion rate is, right? So it is a, what have you done for me lately? Okay, I signed up for your plan, but am I glad I'm on it a year later, right? And so obviously, as you're aware, Andy, we've built our entire platform around trying to check these boxes on day 1, on day 10, on day 600. And so I think it's really important that people have a comprehensive plan for churn, right? And then also, you got to be out to that customer on time when they need you as well. I mean, we've seen clients do a great job of getting people to sign up, and then they're just not staffed to be able to handle demand in any way, shape, or form. And they're not trying to, shift that demand in any way. They're just the hottest day of the year. Everyone calls and they're like, sorry, I'll be there in 4 days. And it's frustrating when we help them get a membership and then they can't go sell replace that 12-year-old system, right? So it is a holistic, it's not as easy as just having them sign up. That's the first part. It's not as easy as just keeping them, because if you don't do the last thing and actually sell the thing when they need it, then the first 2 didn't matter at all. And so you do have to, plan your resources, and especially around peak, to make sure that you can do right by those customers and win that business.
So you're saying it also comes down to having proper trained technicians and quality service?
Certainly, that has been where most of the focus is, as well it should be. But if you do a great job at that, then it's really just a function of how can you maximize your opportunity for those people to do their thing.
What about this is an oft debated topic, if you want to go on conversion rates still just for a second, over the phone or in person? What are the aspects to those 2 approaches as it comes to, either performance, numbers, cost, et cetera?
Well, I think to perfectly optimize, you have to do a combination of both. I think we've seen in the industry that being able to have stone cold killer salespeople on the phone that are just, their whole job is to book that appointment and make sure that you position that relationship for success, including selling a membership if you can. It works great. You can run the whole call center and have them all under one roof, and that's ideal. If you sell a membership and you want to have the homeowner value it, then you need to be making sure the technician in the field is reinforcing that value, right? We create one-pagers so people can see what's included in the membership when they get out there. Some of our clients actually, get some of those benefits on day 1 by ordering the filters that are included or whatever through the platform, right? So I think, first of all, take the swing using some of the value you can offer them on day 1. Be careful with that psychology, but take that swing. And then secondly, if you swing and miss on the phone, then it makes sense to have a follow-up. Hey, I saw you didn't sign up for our membership. Most of our clients value those. Was there any other questions I can answer? We'd love to be able to make sure you're taken care of moving forward, right? So I don't think there's a wrong or right answer with how you want to go about it, but I don't believe it's just one or the other. I think it's got to be a strong combination of both. At a minimum, the person on the phone needs to be setting the table for the tech to go through it. And I'm a huge believer in using video and pre-made assets to do that as well. We don't see that very often, but if I had an HVAC company, I would want to explain the 2 or 3 memberships in a real quick 90-second video and say, hey, we whichever one you like, we're ready to offer you that service, right? So technicians want to go about their normal job and sell what they're there for. They don't really want to pitch memberships usually, but usually leading with the phone is a great start, and then follow up in the home if you miss.
We've seen the most successful companies start over the phone. It's a solid and succinct pitch that usually focuses around one key pitch. There's also incentives that are tied appropriately to the conversion rate and the success rate. And I think that's a key thing, is that incentives need to be a part of the numbers you track when you're measuring your program success, right? Incentives is what drives people to do the activity. You setting a clear, like if you give someone 3 plans and you say, you get $5 for all of them, you're going to get people pitching plans all over the place. You have to be, this is the one we want to start with. This is the one you pitch. This is the one that gets the most incentive. And then the drop back, I fully agree. Like we say, best practice, technicians are prepared for the no's when they get there with a very simple, straightforward message that starts something like, I noticed you didn't sign up for one of our memberships. Most people tend to sign up for our memberships. Can I ask why you didn't necessarily see value in that, right? And I got to give Josh Kelly credit for that whole sequence. And when that happens, numbers can absolutely go through the roof. So yeah, that's kind of the activity best practice we've seen. Josh, what did I miss in there, and where do you want to emphasize?
I think a stair-stepped approach of starting with, this is our top tier option, right? And then if you don't value some of these things, we have something that's our most popular option, right? Or whatever, right? And then you have to have some sort of catch-all as well. We've had some clients lately just selling like one visit plans, actually without our technology, which hopefully we'll change that at some point. But really, when you think about it, when conversion is the number one metric that we think matters in this, then you got to give them some offering that's really low priced, right? Give them something under $10 a month. I mean, if I had a company, I'd want to give them a $3 a month option, right? Or a $5 or $7, right? So just build enough value in the overall things, and maybe even let them pick and choose what they like by giving them different options. I certainly, you and I go back and forth on this, and a lot of people swear by just having one thing. I just don't. I don't believe in that unless that one thing is $5 a month. You're just leaving so many people on the table, right? And frankly, if it is $5 a month, you're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table by not selling them something more robust. So I think at least two. And when we try to get people to offer smart maintenance for their plans, we don't start by saying, hey, you know, don't go to the house twice a year to the people that want you to be there twice a year. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that 80% of the people, right, 70 or 80, don't want you there twice a year. So have something to offer them, right? Maybe they want you there once a year. Maybe they just want monitoring only, or maybe they want your $5 a month membership because it'll save them some money next time, right? Or they'll skip the line. Have something for everyone. I really think at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing for conversion. And it's hugely important for churn, because if they signed up for something they valued, picking from 3 or 4 options, they're more likely to stick with it long term because you had something that suited them well from day one. Well, we could talk about this for 5 episodes. Obviously, this is probably the thing I'm the most passionate about in the whole space. And thank you for deferring to me more than usual today, Andy, because you know how passionate I am about it.
You know, look, the combination of a program includes the psychology. It includes the conditioning from a marketing aspect. It also there's price point relevance in there, and I've got some background experience in some of that. And then how you deliver it is huge, right? So it depends on the person who's delivering it and how they deliver it. And there's so many different facets to this that it's nearly endless, right? That you could tweak on it forever. What I want to highlight here is that it starts with understanding where you are today, and there's very specific and clear metrics to do that. Just over the combination of the last probably 12, 18 months of working with, I'd say at this point, hundreds of companies, we've got a pretty good game plan together, right? It's a membership metrics evaluation doc. We walk through it very detailed with CFOs. I'm happy to share most of the stuff in here that's not proprietary with people that want it. But it's kind of step one, right? When someone sees the opportunity to improve, then the next question is, okay, well, where do I start? And it's, well, what are you doing today, right? What do your numbers look like today? Because if you don't know that, then you don't know where to start the improvements. And you certainly, changing everything at once can be daunting, right? Especially a big organization. You're like, wait, so you tell me I'm going to change the number of plans I got, how I incentivize them, the commission, that's going to affect P&L, all that. It sounds a little bit overwhelming. You say, well, stop. Let's start where are you good? Let's not worry about that. Let's focus on the leaks that we find and make tweaks to it to start with.
I think it's better to pull the Band-Aid off and try to get to your final form as fast as possible. I don't think you should be changing your memberships every single year, right? And so I do think that a holistic approach of, hey, what do we want to have now and for the next 5 years is important, because jerking the team around too often is just not good. So yeah, I do think that maybe different organizations have a different landing places, certainly, right? But find out where that landing place is for your strategy in the next 3, 4, 5 years and try to make that change once, especially if you have some social proof and you can talk to some other people that have done it before, right? Then I think that's a better way of going about it. And then there, maybe in the future we'll talk about some other metrics of like average tickets and how much higher they are with a member, right? So like, we've had clients that say, hey, if I'm in the house the first time and it turns over, I might sell an average ticket of $15,000, right? But if I go out there for a system that I've had them on a membership for 2 years, that's usually 16.8, right? And so there's just, you should be able to get more margin from those customers on top of just having those incrementally free swings when you already acquired them the first time.
All right. Well, I think we've done a decent job of scratching the surface on this. If there's more interest in people feel free to reach out. Like I said, I'm happy to share metrics that in some of the process we've done with other organizations. I think, you and I love this topic, and we could probably spend another 4 hours on it. Thanks everyone for listening today. Again, it's Experience Matters. Today is Know Your Membership Numbers. If you want to reach out to us, we should have our information available. You can reach out to our website or reach out to us individually via LinkedIn.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.